voters, providing a severability clause, providing a conflicting ordinance repeal, and providing an effective date.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second, okay. Any public comment cards, or do you want to have city discussion first? Would anyone like to comment?
Yes.
Commissioner McBoyd?
Well, let's take public comment.
Lynn Anderson?
Hello again, Lynn Anderson, 2204 Lake Osborne Drive. We had this election 8 years ago with the worst commission ever. And the voters said no by almost 68%. And if Congress has 2-year terms, that should be good enough for all of you. I'm totally against 3-year terms. Thank you.
The item on the floor is to put it on the ballot in the referendum election, so again, we're not voting, we're voting to put it on the ballot.
Any?
Yep, Commissioner McBoyd?
Yeah, I'll share some thoughts on it. I do recognize that we are not voting ourselves in for 3-year terms with this particular vote that we're taking right now. We are voting to put the idea on the ballot. However, by what one puts on the ballot, one is actively involved in the process. And I will take that in 2 parts. One is the length of the term, and the other is when this process starts. On the length of the term, I probably actually am a minority outlook here, and I come to the opinion that I have on it from having done it. Obviously, the risk is if you don't like who is on the commission, then you think they ought to have a 2-minute term. And if you do like them, you should give them a 10-year term. Unfortunately, you don't know that at the time, so you only get a shot when they come up again. So there's goods and bads about any length of term. I personally, from my own experience, having run 3 times, I can tell you that if you have another life outside of being a commissioner, you're basically giving up 3 months of your life and pretty close to full-time to run, and to do that on a 2-year cycle is asking an awful lot of folks in the city. And in my opinion, you want to widen the pool of people who are willing to do public service. You don't want just the usual suspects, people who are in the real estate industry and they're basically doing it as a business investment. You want a wide range of people to consider running. If the burden of running is so big and it comes up so often, I think we narrow the field a little bit on that. So I would not necessarily be opposed personally to 3 years. The other side of the issue is it says commencing in such and such a time. It says the terms for the mayor and commissioners from District 1 and 3 would commence in a time that's already happened. So I think, if I'm not making a mistake, that's basically signing yourself up. You got elected for 2 years and now you'd like another free year without having to run for office for it. The only word that comes to mind for me is unseemly. It just seems like that's not really the way you do things. If you want to make a change to the 2 things that commissioners have to make opinions on or let people vote on that affect themselves. One is, hey, I think we ought to vote ourselves a salary increase. Well, the way you do that in the seemly fashion is you say, you know what, if you want to get better people in, let's raise the salary. Let's make it effective for 2 years out so we are not voting ourselves a salary increase. In the same way, if you're going to vote for longer terms, make it effective some ways out so that we are completely clean on it. We're just suggesting, hey, maybe this is a good idea, let's see what the community thinks, but it's not affecting our terms. So I in no way can support a proposal for 3 years that says, hey, it applies to the people who are in office now. So I will be voting no against that. I'm open to considering a different motion that says, let the voters consider 3-year terms and see what people want. I'm all for democracy, but let it start after we're all out of the picture.
Commissioner Meyer?
I would like to mirror those comments. I think can see a number of reasons that we would extend this to 3-year terms versus 2. But considering the mayor and commissioners who are already in office, when the people voted on your terms, they voted thinking that you would be here for 2 years and not 3. So that seems misrepresentative to me, and that it should be the future going forward, not the existing.
Vice Mayor?
Sure. First of all, this is for the city manager. Whose idea was this, and what was the rationale between this particular language? Because I tend to agree that, I don't want to put myself in an extra year that I wasn't voted for initially. So what's the rationale? There are pros and cons to doing it this way? Is there a reason why we would do it this way? As opposed to, as was already suggested, that, we vote on it and then going forward.
It was the language that was just generated between working with staff and the attorneys. Whatever you choose to do is obviously your direction to us. We've heard numerous years about the fact that the terms are too short. How you implement the phase-in period, I've seen it done every which way. So if you have a preference, let me know.
A couple follow-ups. So first I'll ask, I guess I'll ask the maker of the motion, the second of the motion, if they reconsider their motion based on the 3 comments we just heard. And the other comment I have is to the city manager, and in practice now, for everybody that's not looking at the back of the material, how does this work? Let's just say, for example, let's say the motion gets changed, and going forward, when you get elected, you get a 3-year term. So how does that, are we having 3 election cycles now? Are we still having 2 election cycles? How does that work? And
This will be 2 cycles.
2 cycles, 1 year off.
so, okay,
So
so the
districts
folks
two-
that run next time would get a 3-year term, if it passed. What's this for, what, November?
And March.
Right,
Or
depending
is this for
on,
November, for March?
this would be November,
This is on November.
this would be
It
November.
would go effective in April.
After the March
After the
election.
March.
So the March,
So the 2 districts are up in March, we get 3 years if it's passed.
That's one
Correct.
scenario, right? Yeah, the scenario in front of you now would make 3-year terms for anyone that's running in March of 17, as well as for those of you that were elected in March of 16. Another scenario, because Mike said there are different scenarios, is it's effective only for those that are running in March of 17 and thereafter, so not retroactive. And the third scenario is it would be effective at some point in the future, March of 18 or 19. So you have obviously 3 different scenarios as to how you could decide to.
But what I'm getting at is, let's just say, for example, it passes in November, and the idea is that we start with the March cycle, beginning of March, going forward, folks get elected for 3 years. So we have 2 seats up in March, and if it passes, they'll get 3 years.
Right.
Now, those of us who did the other cycle behind them, would that mean that we would have a election the following year, and then there would be no election for 2 years, and then, is that how that works? So we'd have 2 years in a row going forward.
One
Let him explain.
year. Right, you have 1 year without an election, so I'll use this example that's in front of you first. If it's approved this way and it is retroactive, then it'd be the March 16 wouldn't run again until March of 19. The March 17 wouldn't run again until March of 20, so March of 18 would be no election. If you went with the scenario that was not retroactive and it started March of 17, March 17 would run again in March 20, March 18, because there would be one in 18 then, because you only have a 2-year term, would run again in 21. So then 19 would be your off year. So you'd always have 1 off year.
So there's always gonna be 1 off year, but there'll be 2 consecutive years of campaigning or
Yes.
elections,
Yes.
and then 1
Obviously,
off year.
to be-
So it's not like we're staggering it, to where there's 1 election, we're off, another election, we're off, another election.
You could, again, that's a scenario we didn't really discuss, but if you wanted an election every year, you could change the terms even more, or to go a little bit like Commissioner McBoyce, and I don't know if you go 4-year terms, and you then even go, I know you didn't go
I
that
don't think
far.
you'd get anybody who run.
But the 3-year terms, you could, for example, go districts 2 and 4, 1 year, districts 3 and 5 another year, and mayor district another year. So you'd have every year an election. We understood that, I understood at least, that your concept was to have 1 year off, that there'd be a year where the city residents could breathe. Right? And candidates could breathe, and everybody would kind of just take a breath for that 1 year, whether it's 19 or 20 or 18, whatever year it happens to be, depending on how you stagger it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. We had the public comments we don't usually go back to, but another card was submitted after we already had discussion. Barry Watson. Normally I don't do it, but I'll break protocol.